To be real, I'm surprised how Man Stranger of Paradise has been received. Neo 1 and 2 were more or less liked by the masses, but still misunderstood. 1 was compared to Dark Souls, unrightfully so, not because it can't compete, they're just two entirely different games. Neo 2 was shortchanged by not winning Best Action Game of its year, even though its combat was expanded on extensively, plus it was way better than Hades. Anyways, so to see Stranger get trashed on, even though Team Ninja's recent action games have been seen mostly positive, but not this time, and yet again, its hate is nowhere near deserved. My intro is going on long enough, let's get into why this game is worth your time. But first, this is Combat Overview. In these series of videos, I go over, what is that? The combat. To be visual manual in a way, and to give a more in-depth look into what a game has to offer, because too many reviews gloss over gameplay, calling it a button masher, or giving it the blanket statement. It's like DMC. Stranger of Paradise gameplay loop is all about juggling your MP bar and your break gauge, knowing when to press your advantage or to back off to rethink your approach. Let's start off with the break gauge. You want to make sure this never gets broken, and if it's shattered, you'll be knocked down, leaving yourself wide open for an enemy attack. Being hit will do massive damage to your gauge, so to help you can block their attacks, which reduce the amount of oncoming break damage. Don't worry, it will recover over time, but holding block will stop any progress of recovery, so you can't hide behind it forever. So what you can do is mix in parries. Pressing L1 will block, and if timed correctly, you'll see this blue circle appear to let you know you got it. Doing this will make your break gauge recover faster for a short time, and you know when this buff is active by looking in the corner. Another option to avoid attacks is by pressing X to dash and double tap to roll. The initial dash has iframes and is great to slip through enemies' moves. Double tap will roll, which has no iframes and is used more as a spacing tool. Now this is where the game starts to get interesting. By holding circle, we'll use soul shield. This is where high risk, high reward comes into play. Okay, so while using soul shield, any enemy's attacks that land on it will stagger them. Except these attacks with red auras on them, these can't be blocked or soul shielded. After an SS, you can press R1 to lunge forward and do a follow-up attack. It'll also raise your max MP, which we'll get into more later, but while SS is out, it'll quickly use up your break. So now the very resource we're trying to maintain can be used as a defensive tool that'll open up a lot more options than a regular block could. But in order to use this properly, you really gotta know your enemy's attacks. Cool little detail you can look out for are the attacks names. If there's too much going on with all the enemies and your party members running around, seeing an attack name will instantly give you that info you need to know what's coming out. But holding SS too early would drain too much break, leaving you very little to work with, because even a successful SS will damage your break, just like shielding the attack would have. And even if you notice that you held it for too long and drop it, the end lag is very real. Like I said, it's a very high risk, high reward option that demands you to use your noggin. But if you get it down, it'll turn the table on enemies, raise your max MP, and you can even steal enemies' attacks with it. If you see a purple attack, that'll let you know it can be taken. Soul shielding these attacks will give you that move for a limited use, shown by this number. And yep, even boss attacks. Alright, so now moving on to the MP bar. This is used to make major plays. Again, it only starts with 2 pips, but using SS will increase the bar instantly. So MP is used for combo enders, commands, and jobs' unique abilities. Don't worry, I'll go over all those soon enough, but okay. Using any of those things will cost 1 pip of MP for the most part, and the way to refill it is to land hits. So to go back to SS, getting 1 will increase your max MP, and you can press R1 to rush to follow up with an attack of your own, which will start to fill up your newly increased MP bar. So now we're starting to see things line up a bit. Okay, so we got an SS, we did our lure combo, got some MP to spend. So at the cost of 1 MP, we can do an ender by pressing R2. Now we want to do this because enemies also have a break gauge. Regular attacks will bring it down, but enders will really destroy it. And once you break an enemy, this will set him up for a soul burst by pressing circle. It'll instant kill him right on the spot. It doesn't matter how much health they have, just as long as they're broken. So similar to the obliteration technique in Ninja Gaiden 2, which Team Ninja also made, go check it out, it's amazing. While you're in the animation, you're completely invincible. So if you played NG2, you know just how good this can be. It'll give you the seconds you need in a chaotic fight to get a new gameplay going. But in Stranger, not only is it good to instantly kill an enemy and give us time to see who's on the field, once you exit Soul Burst, any nearby enemies will be knocked back and you'll gain MP alongside with an increased bar. And if multiple enemies are broken next to each other, the same wave will auto Soul Burst a group of broken enemies. So you don't have to walk up to every single enemy one by one to Soul Burst them, as long as they're close to each other. And again, this can all be started by a Soul Shield. So you really need to know an enemy's attacks to gain a huge advantage in a fight. You can start a combo in neutral too and go into enders and all that too, you know, just to be clear. But yeah, knowing when you can risk your gauge and your enemy's attack patterns are very important. Speaking of which, after everything's said and done, you'll notice your break isn't restored by much or if any at all, and there's still enemies coming your way. That's because attacking and evading will slow its recovery, and blocking will stop its recovery altogether. So it seems like this is the one thing that's going to keep us held back, but what if I told you there's some built-in mechanics to get around it? So not only can we do parries to help it get a recovery buff, but now we can go into job switching. To do this, we press triangle. We can switch jobs at any time mid-fight but not mid-combo, but after an ender we can press triangle, which will do a chain cancel. This will cancel the end lag of your combo and will go into your other job, or battle set, what the game calls them. This also solves the problem of having low break after some soul shields and blocks. That's because each battle set have their own break gauge to manage, so we can really continue the pressure. Not only does these chain cancels allow us to do that, we can also use this to retreat or just reposition. So by holding the left thumbstick in a direction while we chain cancel, you go in that direction. Now switching jobs isn't our only way to cancel our combos and lag. We can also use those enemies' abilities we stole with the soul shield to cancel the end lag, or midway through. So if our move has too much startup and we see an enemy rushing at us, we can use the ability to cancel out of it to save ourselves. We can also use our commands we got equipped to cancel end lag, but at the cost of MP. I'll go into what commands are and what they do soon, but the one I really want us to look at is Lightbringer. We start the game with this command, so at the cost of 2 MP, we can activate it. And while we're in it, we do more break damage to enemies, and killing them in this form will auto soul burst them, still giving you all those same benefits. It'll be on a timer, so it'll slowly reset, and being hit will help empty it too. The cool thing about Lightbringer, you'll have iframes on startup. It'll also fully restore your break gauge once it ends. So if you're surrounded and break is about to be shattered, so you can use this to back you up, or if you're feeling yourself, you can use this to continue the pressure with them iframes, doing some stylish plays. Either way, it's a very strong tool, both defensively and offensively. Alright, so now we can finally talk about the job system. So we can have 2 jobs equipped at once, and each one will have their own unique setup from the gear, combo enders, and commands. Jobs will cover a good range of all playstyles, and we'll have a unique attack we can do in neutral by pressing R2 at the cost of MP. But because there's so many, I won't cover every one, but I'll just give a good idea of what we got to work with early on. So you'll start off with the swordsman. Nothing too crazy here, just a typical strength approach of having a big sword to bully enemies. Sword fighter, very similar names these two, is an all-arounder job that uses a sword and shield. It has decent range, fast enough swings to deal consistent damage. It's a very beginner-friendly job since its unique ability put this bubble around you, and if hit, you'll do an auto counter attack that'll last for only 1 hit. So it'll help ease you in. But by upgrading this job, we can make it to where every successful soul shield will do the counter attack and still keep this bubble on you until the timer runs out or until you take a raw hit. Marauder will use an axe, and the job's unique ability is used to debuff enemies, and charging it will make its range wider and making the debuff stronger as well. Pugilist is a very high level job. It uses knuckles that are extremely fast, and the basic attack combo will loop back into itself compared to the other weapons where they have a definite end with only 3 swings. So with this speed, they aim to land as many hits as possible. That's because the more hits they land, they'll gain power levels, shown by the color on the back, red being the highest. And with the help with the unique ability, it'll do a committal pummel that'll level you quicker than your basic attacks could. And higher the power level you have, the more break damage you'll do. But the catch is, being hit once will reset the power level. So to really see its full potential, gotta know who's in the crowd and all the patterns, so you can know how much you can get away with before having to back off. And having such stubby range will make this even more difficult to manage. But hey, the knuckles got an Azuna drop. Alright, before I talk about the Lancer job, this is a good time to mention there's 3 different attack attributes. Physical attacks will either have a property of a slash, pierce, or strike damage. If you attack an enemy with an attack type they're weak to, you do an additional break damage. It's not super necessary to know, but the extra break damage will be seen. Okay, so back to the Lancer job. So the weapon's main thing is that it can access to all the attack attributes. So to do this, we'll combine a left thumbstick direction and an attack with R1 at the same time. Forward R1 would do a pierce attack, back R1 would do a strike, and side R1 would do a slash. Now cool thing about these directional attacks, you can use them to extend your basic combo. Lance will do a 3-hit combo, and you'll notice the enemy is a sliver of break damage or 1 HP away of being taken out. Using a whole pip to finish him off is just too much resources spent, so with that extension we can take him out and save that MP. Now Lance isn't the only weapon that can do this, a lot of weapons can. So Lance's attacks focus on attack attributes, but other weapons' directional moves influence your position. Back R1 with an axe and katana, for example, would do a retreating attack, but they don't have any side attacks. But what they can do is charge their attack, which also has different uses compared to each other. Axe charges for a stronger hit, while the katana's charge will make you go into a unique stance. The mage, which specializes in the paper rock scissors game with elements, will use a mace. It can charge a first attack, but unlike the axe where you gotta stay still, you can walk around while charging the mace. And instead of having a retreating attack while holding back, the mace will go into a counter guard stance. And any enemy who attacks you while you're in this will be deflected. So each weapon have these extra attacks, but the uses are very different, making them all unique to play with. Now to take things a step further, every attack in your combo chain, and even every directional attack, have their own combo ender. And all these can be customized. First attack can lead into a multi-hit to start the beat down quick. Second hit can have a huge reach and ender to swat them flying enemies. The third attack can have a powerhouse finisher. We can even choose enders that reposition us or even enemies. We can have something that will act as a dodge to their hits and do an attack of our own. Or something to have us zip through them to keep getting those crits on the back. We can have enders to send enemies into environments like walls, which can lead to wall splat damage, which does extra break. Or even move them into grass, which we can set on fire to deal damage over time. We can take it even further and have enders that have specific attack attributes or elemental damage to exploit enemy weaknesses. Alright, so let's move on to the commands. These are used to support your playstyle at the cost of MP, to either strengthen an aspect of your playstyle or to help with the gaps in it. Let's say you don't like the basic attacks can't be cancelled by dodging, similar to Bayonetta or Wolverine, so you can equip teleport to help with that. It'll enhance your dodges to have the iframes of a dash, but the distance of a roll, and the ability to cancel your lights. If you just want to rush in to trade with enemies, or even like the health mechanic from Bloodborne, you can use a blood weapon. Damage you deal will convert into health. It'll help cover you and give an incentive to be more aggressive. And if it's difficult to manage your break, and job switching and parries are a bit too much, you can use sway back. It's a retreating dodge that instantly fills up your break. It'll take you out of the fight, but hey, it'll keep you afloat. But there's so many I haven't used or tested, you can definitely find something here for you. And you gotta remember, this is all for the one battle set. We can do deep diving customization for the other job we have equipped too. So to get all these different commands and combo enders, we gotta level up these jobs. You'll gain experience by defeating enemies, bosses, and completing missions. You even gain XP for a job you don't even have equipped, so progress is always being made. But if you feel like speeding up the process, after every mission you complete, you'll get these anima shards and anima crystals. These can be used to gain some levels real quick to have some stuff to work with before using that job. If you don't want to test other jobs just yet, I'll still highly recommend upgrading these jobs though. That's because each one will have passive buffs, more enders and combos to choose from, and when you reach the bottom, you get 2 more jobs that you can branch off to for more commands and more upgrades. And these jobs are more specialized versions of these basic ones we start out with, which also have access to use more weapons compared to the one we're locked into before. So these give you more options to use, and you can find something that will suit you better soon enough. This is definitely another example of Team Ninja doing what they do best, and will for sure be remembered by action game fans as one of the greats. But sadly, it's looking to be the god hand of our generation, panned by casuals who just have no idea what they're talking about. It's just a bit salty since Capcom and Platinum's games are seen for their amazing design, and the funny little characteristics they have are praised and taken apart by many. But I feel like Team Ninja's recent games are seen as something that can't stand on their own. But for the people who know, Stranger of Paradise is filled to the brim with creativity in its combat. Being able to translate the Final Fantasy job system into a fast-paced action game was done so damn great. Having on-the-fly job switching, being able to customize a wide range of your moveset to the combo enders, which 2 jobs you want to synergize, what weapons you want to use, countless amounts of commands, and hell, even a full custom control scheme if you wanted. There's so much opportunity here for the players to have full reign of their experience to make any battle set unique to you. And that's just genius.